Hey everybody, welcome to the 7th episode of Building Jam. In this episode, we talk about product demos to customers, new go-to-market channels, new integration launches that we did at Jam, and also how to give feedback over Slack. So let's get started. Today I started my day super early in the morning. Usually I wake up at 6, but the first meeting, I try to do it after 9, but today was special. So at 8:15, I'm scheduled to go in to give an Jam onboarding to this company. I'm not going to name the company in the podcast, but it's not the first time. But we have been doing this for a while, but all of a sudden, there's so many of those happening now. It's crazy. People talk about oh, you have to prioritize. Do the thing that's the most important. We're at a point, and I know haters gonna hate. People are gonna comment about this, where there's lots of things that are super important and we can't just drop the ball. This is one of them, where Jam, very traditional, bottoms up PLG company. We're still that very strong channel there, right? But now we're sort of dabbling in it a bit, but now it's in full throttle, I would say, where top down sales is becoming pretty big channel slowly as well. So pretty exciting. So anyway, usually when a company starts using Jam, it's someone from the company who signs up, and then they spread with others, and eventually it gets to the person at the top, and then they decide, okay, yes, this is a tool, everyone's using it, everyone finds it valuable, so we're going to keep using it. This is slightly different, where it's the executive or the person from the top who's bringing the tool into the company because they see that, hey, our engineers can be as productive as the other people who are using Jam. So it's slightly different, where usually the people who are already using Jam, they're already convinced and they have to convince the exec, but it's the other way around. So I have to come in and present to the rest of the team. It was really cool. I could see the signups from that company going up as soon as I ended the call, which was super cool.
What was it like? You come in and what happens?
Yeah. Okay. Honestly, me trying to figure out how to share my screen on Microsoft Teams. So that's the first thing that happens. And then when I share, and I'm doing my demo and talking through things, some people were kind enough to show their faces. Usually it's all dark screens. But then I'm talking through the demo, and then someone pops in the chat and interrupts me. It's hey, you're actually only sharing your one tab. You're not sharing what's going on in another. oh my God. Okay. I guess I gotta start from the top. So then I go back and reshare. That's the boring stuff. That's what happens. That's what happens. Yeah, super nice. I'm so glad they did, instead of just letting it be. But yeah, it started off with people sort of other than of course telling me to change the screen sharing settings. People were pretty quiet in the beginning. They're following along, but at the end you could see people are excited, commenting, asking questions, and of course signing up and starting to use Jam, which is super cool.
That is so cool.
Yeah, totally. I guess you have this question, are people getting it? If you don't get the nodding heads, you can't see it. You're sort of all right, do I it's harder to read the room when you're doing it like that. You can't actually see the nodding heads.
Yeah. I have to for the people who were in the Microsoft Teams meeting, I would stop okay, can I get a thumbs up from y'all? So I would do that. Sometimes it's nerve-wracking to ask a group of people to do that.
When I was at USB, Fred Wilson used to say that when you are in sales, you are in the business of delivering a good meeting. As a VC, you're selling, and so you're in the business of delivering a good meeting. And Irtefa, it sounds like you delivered a great meeting where people joined. It was early, it was quiet, and by the end, everyone's engaged. So that's the best.
I have a question of how it works, when you're doing these types of live demos with a team, and it's more this what you were saying, top down. Does it then work it's optional, it's an optional demo to show you what Jam can do, and if you want it, you can get it here, it's free, and then some people from the company will sign up? Or is it here's this demo, y'all have to get this tool because the decision maker has decided, and this is how you use it?
Yeah, you have to do your homework. So what that means is you will have to like talk to the person who's bringing you into the meeting to set the context. Like, hey, like, are these like people who don't know about Jam at all? And you're going to talk about the company for the first time. So then in that case, you would talk a little bit about the company, the journey, and then show the product. In some other case, they could already be familiar with Jam, and it's just a matter of, hey, like, can you set us up for success? And you're basically not demoing the product, but rather taking them on a journey so that they're all set up for success by the time the call is over. So it really depends, and the way to figure that out is by talking to the person who's bringing you in and doing the homework. Yeah, like that's basically it. There's, by the way, there's no like secret to this thing. It's pretty straightforward. Just show up and do it and do the homework.
This might be a good segue. So, in the theme of what's going on at Jam literally today, so Irtefa did this in the morning, and then Ian watched the video. And Ian, why did you watch the video?
Oh yeah, basically I was making a demo today about getting started with Jam, and so sort of taking so like I was watching through what Irtefa was doing, and then having this to compare with the video I made. This is like, oh, actually showing a more tutorial style desk walkthrough type of thing. And so essentially, like, I'm thinking about how we can do the type of demo that Irtefa does, but do it for everybody. And so for me, like, I guess as I think about you walking through it, Irtefa, I'm imagining you seeing everyone in the call and being like, all right, this is who I'm talking to. But for me, I guess it's a little bit more different. It's a little bit more different because I'm not in a call, like no one's asking follow-up questions, right? It's just me with my camera here, right? So I'm trying to think about, all right, like, who exactly am I talking to with this? How much context do they have? What type of org are they working in? And am I really going through the product in the right way that makes the most sense? So
it is quite nerve-wracking when you do that. Maybe you should borrow Ivana's Apple Vision Pro so you can like put that on and like see some fake audience and like make a demo like that. I think I was joking a little bit, but I think that will be really interesting if you do that.
Yeah. see the audience. I can, I mean, the old school way is I put a duck on my desk, right, and then I say, "Oh, Did you get that? Did you?"
Yeah, I did that all the time when I was an engineer. Hey, but by the way, like we didn't talk about like why Ian is making the video. So yes, like I did the live onboarding like call, like demo the product, but Ian, like, why are you making this video?
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially trying to think about how it is that we, like, when teams are getting started on Jam and teams want to have a resource that they can share with other people on the team, like to give everyone that context, like making the perfect resource for that moment is the goal. And I think, before with a lot of the other videos I make, it's like, oh, how are we introducing Jam to new audiences? How is it that someone, how is it that we're reaching new people? And this one, the goal is really different. Like people that are already, there's already one person on the team that already knows about Jam, that someone is interested. And then now what is the video that they share with everyone else? So,
It's cool. It's like, if you have an enterprise conversation with us, then the experience you get is like co-founder comes and visits your team and does live onboarding. But for like, there's plenty of companies that can't do that. And for everyone else, there's this thing, Ian, that you are creating that is like the replacement of that, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I like building out this, that sort of journey too. Like, I feel like this is the first in what I would see as a much larger, like, I don't know, Jam Academy is how I'm thinking about it in my mind. But just like, I don't know, of the use, like all the different use cases for different types of organizations, I see this is sort of a general first one that we're thinking is a good place for anyone to start. But I could see us becoming more niche about, if you're in this industry, here's a setup that would work particularly well for you. And I see it as like, in general, I don't want to call it sales enablement, but it is in this this category of like collateral that we could build out for very particular verticals. And I think that, I don't know, to me, that's exciting because I would love, like, I just imagining you're on the other side of this, you see this video that's like, oh, you're an e-commerce company. And it's like, oh, this is exactly the, like, given your situation, we know this is how your team is set up. Here's exactly how, like, we'd recommend you set up your folders. This is how I set up workspace. Here's everything you need to know for these personas. And I find that a cool premise.
Man, that's so exciting, Ian. Like, I can't wait to see that and the n number of videos that you're going to make after that.
I watched the video Ian made today. It's really good. One of the interesting things changing in how in like this video versus like other stuff we've done is in the past, like you've already sort of been sold on Jam by the time you start using the product. Like you heard about it on Twitter, someone told you to use it, like something already happened, you're already sold, and then you come engage. The chair almost fell.
You okay?
Okay, I think everything is stable now. But as companies are like using Jam and then are like, oh, more people in the company should use Jam, they're just like, go use this. And the people who are encountering it, it's like a new tool and they have yet to be sold. And so it's sort of the first time that we're like, oh, our content needs to start from scratch and give you a why and like try to help you understand why you've just been sent this thing. And that was sort of an interesting part of the conversation this morning.
Yeah, right. It's interesting because you're trying to do like two things kind of at the same time. You're not just doing a tutorial of like, step 1, step 2, step 3. You're also sort of like selling this vision of like who you will be, what you will accomplish, what Jam is in the shape of step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's like you're not selling a product, you're selling a better future.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know who did this really well?
So,
And Ivana actually worked at this company before. I remember the first time, like when I tried out Superhuman and they did those like Superhuman onboarding calls. I know we're talking about video, but the essence is like there in that live onboarding, where that was the first time, which like we sort of try to do too, is when the onboarding started, the customer success manager told me, oh, this is what we're going to accomplish by the end of this call. I was like, I just felt like a superhuman. So I think that's what we're trying to do, like across the board, like with videos and sales calls and demos.
it's really powerful. I feel like as product people, we often think that the product speaks for itself and that the what is very important. And it's like, this is a new product that no one has ever done before. And like, it's exciting for these reasons. And look at all these features and capabilities. But like the reason why we're excited is because it changes something for someone. And it's like remembering to step back and like give that why, because they haven't heard it before. It's like a new way of, I guess it's marketing.
Yeah, there's also, I mean, a second order thing to think about here is also how it is that after you've created an asset like this, you're actually delivering it at the right moment or at the right time where you actually have this question. And that's the part where we'll get to this second problem shortly. But is it in an email? Is it in somewhere in the product when someone's just getting started and they have no jams yet? Is it, the question of actually where this shows up is an important one, because I could see you actually creating something that's great for a certain persona, but then actually just how it's not reaching that person because at the moment where they have that question, it's not surfaced appropriately. Because oftentimes you get into a product and then you just want to click through to start using it because you think you're going to get it, right? Like I usually get this when I open a new, open like Descript, my like video editor or whatever. Like it goes, what's new? And I'm like, no, let me just do the thing I was trying to do. But then I'm like, oh, wait a second. Now I'm trying to edit captions and I'm like, oh, that new feature now would be relevant for me. So how you actually surface back the thing at the right moment is like that's the like one of the most important parts of this whole thing.
Hell yeah. I just slacked Chris and Maya and said, oh, the empty state. Ian, great reminder.
I see.
I have one last thought about this. One of my favorite like marketing thinking people is Seth Godin. I just think he's brilliant. I just love how he sees the world. And his whole, he has like a couple of different shticks, but one of them is like no spam. Like bad marketing is spam because it's pushing a message to you, and great marketing changes lives. And it's helping people like be a different person, be a better, more productive, more thoughtful, more like slow, like whatever, like more something version of themselves, or like experience a better world for themselves. I honestly think that like framing is like so positive and optimistic, and like, tech changes the world. It's like all the things I love about startups. But I love that as you're making this video, it's like help them see the why, help them get there. Hopefully the product delivers on that promise and show it to them at the right moment. What else is happening at Jam today? Ivana, what's in your world today?
So today we launched integration The fourth one, yay! Remember, we were doing one a week, so this was the fourth integration. It is full story, and so we launched it this morning, and it was fun. It was, by this point, it was like an easy launch, right? We kind of just had everything ready to go. It felt, I know we're supposed to like talk about challenges all the time, but like sometimes, things are okay and not so challenging. And this was one of those things that we had this group, we had all the assets ready from last week and stuff. So kind of shipped it and good. The interesting thing about this feature launch was the sort of like the messaging around it was, we didn't want to just highlight the feature like this. You now get full story links in every jam. If your website has full story, that's the integration, and you don't even have to install it or anything. Like, it's just there. You don't have to connect it or write code or anything. It's just, if you have full story, now every jam will have the links in session. And so that's really cool, but that's not all we wanted to say, because really what we're doing with all of these integrations that we launched in May, and like all of the other integrations that Jam has, which are like a lot, right? Like you can use Jam with Sentry, with GitLab, with GitHub, with Asana, with a bunch of others, Notion, Slack, and it also integrates data.
All of Anna. I want to do this, everyone.
Linear. And so you have all of your data, right, from all of these places. And so full story is like adding one more thing that you now get in a single place, instead of having to like search around for like data from full story, and even in Sentry, like having to look at your backend logs with like your front end. So what we really wanted to let people know, besides just like they can also get full story links in Jams now, is that really they can use Jam as like the one place for all of like their debugging needs, right? It combines everything together in one tab, one click. So that was like the interesting part about this launch, right? How do you take a feature launch and use it to really kind of sort of spread awareness about this larger kind of mission?
Ivana, I think you did such a great job of that. Like when I reread the announcement this morning, like I hadn't looked at it since last week. I was like, wow, like I feel excited about like not just the feature, but what it represents, like what it's a step towards. I think you just got it so like precise and specific, and like I just loved the announcement you wrote.
I'm curious about something. So that was the fourth integration, the series of integration launches like last month. And I know you said like, hey, like, oh, everything was ready to go, so it should be, but as you are going through all of these integrations, does it get easier? Like the launch itself, like the marketing around it? What does that look like?
Does it get easier? I feel like the answer is no. No, I mean, it gets easier. So certain things do get easier, right? Like they're the process part of it, right? It gets easier, and like I'm not like second guessing, like, oh, should I notify people about this now? Which channel? Oh, green, red, status updates. All of that gets a lot easier the more you do it, and like you understand how people in Jam work and how like what works best. That gets easier, but not like creating the assets doesn't necessarily get easier, or creating the messaging doesn't necessarily get easier, because we're first of all sort of always trying to improve upon the last one. So sometimes that means like changing the tone, changing the messaging. So it's like you're starting kind of like, and other times it means just like how can I make this 5% better than last time? And sometimes that 5% is really, really hard. So I don't know. I don't think that it gets easier. I think that was kind of the challenge I was thinking about this week, which is like pace, which is going like I want to be able to go faster, without reducing any amount of things. But you always see on LinkedIn, right? Like a lot of like startup marketers that I follow and like I really admire, they're always going on about like, as a startup marketer, you have to like be ruthless, and you have to like tell people no, and you have to like prioritize like what you were talking about, Irtefa, right? And I just, that doesn't feel right to me right now with Jamel. Like I feel like I should just do everything, and like whatever comes my way, like run. I think like this is where we are. Like I don't think it's time to prioritize. Like I think it's time to run after 100 things and do your best at them, which is why like pace is my challenge, because like some things you want to give. I wish I could write like the blog post I'm working on about bug reporting for the decades, I wish I could spend like 3 days just doing that, right? But like again, so what I need to learn is how to do that so that when people read it, it sounds like I spent 3 days on it, but I didn't. And there's like a lot of little things that you could do to optimize your time. I think like I have a lot of technical debt, like with myself, that I've been trying to get rid of this past couple of weeks to make me faster. And that's why I've been like a really annoying teammate probably to a lot of you, because I'm like asking a lot of questions. Like if Danny gives me some feedback, I'll be like, but why? But I don't understand. But wait, but this word, but I, because but I think the more I do it, it's like it's gonna unlock me to go faster later.
Technical debt with respect to your life? What do you mean?
Here's an example. So this is like a really silly one, but for publishing the podcast, right? That we're gonna publish it. You first publish it on YouTube as unlisted. And for like since the first episode, I had the question in the back of my mind, like, would this link work? Like, can I set things up while it's unlisted? And I didn't ask, never thought, like, because I was like, it's such a small thing. I can just Google it later, whatever. But I didn't. And so that would like take me an extra few minutes every morning, like looking up for the link and fixing the tweet when like I could have just had it from the night before if I had just asked you, like, does the link work? You know, that's like a little dumb example, but like, yeah, like getting rid of little debts like that.
The thing you said about people say startup marketers should like ruthlessly prioritize, but I feel like we're in a moment of like execution really matters and we have to do a lot. One of our investors put it really well a few months ago, told me in Irtefa, you're entering into the phase of which what he meant by that was like when you're pre-product market fit, there's only one thing that matters and you're laser focused on it. And you're in the world of or. You can do this or this. But with a growth trajectory where it's like, oh, this is the moment, you're entering into the world of where like, yes, now it's the moment to seize the moment. And like, there's a lot to be done and you have to go and you have to do it. And that's why it's a challenge. And anyway, I think you said it right. Maybe it's a good segue. So as you're talking about like, you're asking a lot of questions so you can eliminate like tech debt for yourself, where it's like, if you understand process or the what or the why now, then it unblocks you the next infinity times you have to do something. One of the things happening in my day at Jam is I got to do an onboarding session with the 3 new engineers that just joined in person, just downstairs here. And it was an onboarding session that I resisted for a long time. And it's called How to Do Boring Stuff at Jam. And I resisted it because I think that momentum really matters. And when you join a startup, you want to get in the action and build stuff and ship stuff, and you want to be part of the team, whatever. But actually there are like real reality things that you have to deal with day to day. Like maybe you need to expense a tool. Maybe you need to take some time off. Maybe you need to know whether to use @here on Slack, or like, is it okay to turn your video off in a Zoom? And like, you know, every company has these different norms. And so in this onboarding, we walk through all the different norms, which is like boring. But if you know on day one, then we don't have to have like conversations and questions and stuff later. And so it's just like, I've come to believe that it's actually this kind of important onboarding session, despite it just being boring. But as we were doing it, the conversation was really great. And a lot of the how do we do day-to-day stuff actually really, really matters. Like, here's an example. We have a cultural norm at Jam that might not be a cultural norm at other companies, which is like, Ivana, if you ask me to do something, the cultural norm at Jam is I will do it and you don't have to follow up about it. And if my timeline changes, I will tell you, right? Like when you pass the ball, the cultural norm is I've now got it and you no longer have to keep track of the ball until I pass it back. But that's not the case everywhere. And so it's like, well, how do you do stuff at Jam? Well, like if someone passes the ball to you, like you're not allowed to drop it. And so like we have to talk about it. And it's like boring day-to-day stuff, but actually it's like super important. And if you do that right in the beginning, then like people are like unblocked, move fast, and do all the exciting stuff onwards. Anyways, that was yeah.
I feel like is this like a symptom of getting a little bit bigger, like growing the team, right? Like these sort of onboardings and information kind of becomes more important. When Ian and I joined, there was like the boring stuff at Jam wasn't.
That was the first time. So we did it. It was the first one.
We did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Irtefa walked us through like plane and stuff like that.
Yeah. And okay, here. So I think that basically the cost of not doing it escalates, but it's important from day one. Like we never did this, and then we would get to points where like someone would do something, and we'd be like, "Oh, that's weird that they did that," and then we'd have to have a conversation with them. And like so, like a bad thing would happen as a result of not doing this, and then we'd have to have an awkward conversation. Like and so that's manageable if the team is small, but if the team is grown, now you have to have lots of these conversations, like and all sorts of bad things are happening, like stuff ships. Like here's an example. Like one of the boring things we talk about is like, what does ready mean at Jam? So if you say a feature is ready, what does it mean here? And like, does it mean like it's in your dev environment and like, you're now going to start the code review, or does it mean like QA has approved it to go to prod? And if we don't talk about it, then one time you're going to say something's ready and we're going to ship it and users are going to tell us it's broken. And we're going to be like, we can't trust you when you say ready. And then it's like everything breaks. But if we do this conversation up front, then like what? Yeah. So it's just like as the team grows, it gets more and more expensive to not do that.
Language is hard. Like it's so much easier with, like TCP/IP protocols. It's like very, unless it's UDP, it's like very specific, the language and exchange and what you're expecting. And you're so right. Like when you're talking about something is ready, and I've fallen into this trap before too. It's like if two people, they don't have the agreement on what ready looks like, then you're screwed.
So also another norm of just starting meetings on time. This is one that comes for me was a sort of new thing. Like I always was used to start the call in like three minutes of chit chat type of deal. But like now the expectation that we're going to start talking about the thing at the time, it feels just like a different expectation to set.
Right. And it's boring to talk about. Like that was one of the things that we did, like Zoom norms, Slack norms. And it's like awkward to talk about. And it's like, but actually like in order to succeed at Jam, you should probably know that that's what's going to happen. And that's what people expect of you. And probably someone should say that to you in your first week. So yeah, we did the how to do boring things at Jam onboarding.
I think that's great. It takes a lot of mental load off of if you're joining a new company, right? To just have a handbook of how people like to do things. You don't have to guess.
Yeah. Do we use at here?
Right. Like when did I already say this on this podcast when I added here in a channel with 120 people because it was the biggest company I'd ever worked for. I've only been used to like working in teams of 30, 35 at the most. And so it was like a 120 person company, and I added at the channel, I was like, at channel, can somebody tell me where to find like and like everybody commented like, please do not at channels. There's multiple time zones. Wow. So many people in this channel. So you can avoid doing that.
Should we pivot to challenges?
Who wants to go first? I already sort of.
So I can go first. It's not really a challenge, but I think this is going to be a common theme for the next crazy number of months. It's the amount of stuff you have to learn really quickly. The channels we're exploring, are like affiliates, and then channel partnerships, things that normally that we think big companies do, but actually, if it's the right size, if it's the right time, any startup should do. And like we're working on these things, and it's new. It's a different motion. There's a lot of slides involved. I hate when Apple does that. How do I turn this shit off? And I use my hands a lot. So, anyway, lots of slides, lots of like humans involved. It's not just like, hey, go like profits or like revenue here. It's really complicated. And so I can't talk too much about it for obvious reasons. It's really exciting. It's really interesting that companies from different countries reaching out to us to be like a reseller partner, and really excited to like work with all of these people in the next few months to have a solid plan when it comes to our like affiliates and like partnerships. It's going to be really, really exciting, and I'm going to learn so much, and I can finally talk about what the specifics are in a future episode.
Can I shout out Irtefa? Irtefa, I'm going to make you uncomfortable, but I would like to say some things.
Please.
There's all sorts of like, there's like a talk track in tech about like how to choose your co-founder. And like, there's a lot of talk track about like, you should have a technical co-founder. And like, it's all the talk track about co-founders is so skills based. But the thing that one of the things that I love about working with Irtefa and partnering with Irtefa on building Jam is Irtefa has a learner's mindset, where the company is constantly changing, and every few months, like what's ahead of us and the challenges and the opportunities have changed, and the skills that we need change. And when that happens, as it frequently does, you can see the light pop up in Irtefa's eyes, and he just is hungry for knowledge and becomes an expert very quickly, and just like goes and finds, who can I talk to? Who can I learn from? Who's doing this the best? Who can I watch? And I think that for like anyone who's thinking like, who's going to be my future co-founder, it's like, find yourself in Irtefa, like someone who just learner's mindset for life, like endlessly curious, like endlessly optimistic that like, yes, we can conquer the next challenge, and let me just figure that out.
Too kind, Danny. Ian, you can edit this part out.
The way you approach Irtefa, I mean, it sounds very like a very, very deliberate. I'm curious, like if you've learned at different just stages of your career and stuff, if you've approached learning differently, like is there something different about how you've taken things on at Jam versus how you learned about topics in the past?
It's funny in a way, or like ironic, because learning how to learn itself is like a skill. And I don't want to talk too much about like this stuff, but I think the only thing to remember is it's okay being like the dumbest person or the stupidest person when you're just starting out. Like a lot of people, especially like as you keep working on your field and you get better, it's really hard to be like that person again, because you're like, oh, like people are looking up to me. I'm going to do big things. But one of the fun things about doing startups is you get to start a lot of things from scratch, which means you have to start at zero and like learn and get to a competent place when you can hire the right people for those positions. So it's really just about that mindset.
That's so true. I was thinking the other day, like exactly sort of what you were just saying, Irtefa, which is like, I think that the more experience I gain in my job, like the less prepared I feel, because you sort of understand that there's so much more to learn. Like when I was earlier in my career, I was more confident. Like I thought I knew everything. Again, I knew more stuff. And the more I advance, the more I kind of think like, nah, girl, like you don't know.
My former boss at USB is like a VC scientist, and he says this thing he says where he's like, people often critique science that it takes away from the wonder of the world, because it's like, oh, everything is like so wonderful, and then it's like, no, but here's like how it works. And he's like, what people don't get is actually once you know like one thing, suddenly everything seems even more wonderful, because you can't because it unearths the fact that there's all this other stuff you don't know, and actually the deeper into the rabbit hole you go, like the more interesting and unknown things get. And I think that's like kind of what you're describing, but like the startup version of that.
That's a good way to put it.
Any other challenges of the week? I've got one. I need your feedback. I'm struggling with giving feedback over Slack, where like, in an ideal world, anytime I'd have feedback, I'd be like, let's get on a call and discuss. But like Ivana said, we're working on like 20 million things. And so probably like, it would just be better if we could just like, if I could just send like something useful, like, cause I'm looking at something with fresh eyes and someone has been looking at it for 2 hours. Like if I can give like a little bit of, here's fresh eyes, how this looks, and then move on. Right. And I just feel like sometimes it can come in as a wrecking ball. Like, I just feel so like, I just don't think I've got this skill of giving feedback over Slack. And I think it's been very acute this week. And maybe I can get your feedback / thoughts on how to do this productively.
Oh, we're going there, huh? Going there.
I'm not going for anything else. Somebody else give her feedback.
I can share a little bit. When early days it was just me and Danny, we were building Jam, and when I was like coding, and like Danny would like give me feedback, and a lot of the times when I thought, like, as an engineer, it might seem a little annoying first when you receive like a voice note, right? Like voice note over Slack. When I was like, oh fuck, I gotta put headphones on to listen to this. I'm being honest here, but
totally.
but when you actually listen to it, the tone is conveyed, right? So it could be feedback, it could be excitement about something, where yes, like it is a little bit of effort to actually do this, but a lot less effort than like hopping on a Slack huddle or like doing a Zoom call, right? Or recording a video. So I think that, like even though initially it might seem like more effort to actually consume that information, but it's much nicer because you have the context, you understand the tone. So I always found that really awesome when you used to do that, Danny.
I love when you do that. I like the voice notes. I feel like Danny, you're always like, I'm sorry that it's a voice note, but like, I love it.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Ian, you look like if someone sent you a voice note, you'd be like, what?
I think, I feel differently about voice notes than obviously Irtefa and Ivana do. Like, I think that if something is important enough to be delivered in a voice note, it should be delivered synchronously so I can respond. Like, and if it's that, like, I don't know. Like, I think in a situation where tone would be really important, perhaps a sensitive type of topic or whatever, I think the synchronous time feels right.
Yeah.
I'm curious about something. Like, as you were talking about Ian, at first I was going to do a joke about, oh, he just gave an "it depends" answer, but it really does depend on the context. And I think, whose whole culture and life is about critique and like doing creative work, and criticism is like design. So I wonder how, like, designers, like even if they're great, they're constantly getting critiqued and people are giving feedback. How are they handling it? Like, it can't just be, oh, like people are like born this way. I'm sure there's like a skill that you learn. I know Danny's question was about how do you give feedback, but also it's on the receiving end. I wonder if there's like a secret there.
Actually, maybe that's a good place to pause then. Ivana and I were just discussing, like, would it be fun to bring in a guest and like outside of Jam and like compare notes about how we're building startups? So it's like, here's what's going on at Jam this week. You're good at this. What should we do? Maybe a good guest would be a designer, and we talk about giving feedback async, remote, in a way that feels constructive and not like a wrecking ball.
I think that would be
Pretty cool.
learn a lot. Yeah, that'd be cool.